Free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, we are free at last. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their powers from the consent of the governed, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive to these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Hey, early happy 4th of July to all of you from Great Plains Media and Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal and beyond. We've kind of put the tagline in there, beyond, because you can find us out on Facebook. We're doing Facebook Live right now. I'm watching myself actually out of the corner of my eye, which means the chat is open. But if you're not able to join us on Facebook or YouTube or Twitter or Rumble, you can always dial 309-451-9299, 309-451-9299. That is our studio line. That is also doubles as our text line. We would love to hear from you. What are you doing this 4th of July weekend, or the weekend before the 4th of July holiday? We want to hear everything, with the good, the bad, the ugly. But ultimately, when I say free at last, thank God Almighty, we are free at last. We are a free people. And I know that this has not been easy, especially in light of societal grievances that have percolated for years, which kind of have manifested themselves in this past month. We saw the ugliness of America lived out because, once again, we're living in times that are unique, where we declare that certain groups of people should have their holiday month or holiday season. And ultimately, that does nothing to create the United States of America. And as I said, in the Declaration of Independence, it clearly states how we are to conduct ourselves as Americans. I find it interesting that you hear a lot about democracy and unification of the people groups and not excluding anyone. But in the same breath, by not excluding anyone, we do exclude people, because you can't have all inclusion without excluding. Now, you're probably wondering, wow, that sounds like doublespeak. And it does, because we've gotten so good at it. I just was reading from Governor Pritzker's statement that he came out with, where he is basically talking about the Supreme Court. Now, once again, three branches of government: the executive branch, the legislative branch, and the judicial branch. Each uniquely has a job that they are to do. Once again, they are inclusive but exclusive, meaning they have a purpose and what they are supposed to do as set forth by the Constitution of the United States. But here's Pritzker's statement in regards to a Supreme Court decision that allows LGBTQ plus discrimination to pervade. That is his opinion. Once again, here it is. We have a governor who is holding a position in the state government of executive, not legislative and not judicial. It is not his job it's his job to live out what the legislators put forth in front of him as the executive. He is to execute, hence the word executive. Execute what the legislators have put in place on behalf of the people they represent. The judicial branch, a totally different part of the Constitution, a branch of government whose basically who I should say, whose ultimate goal is to take the Constitution and to make sure that we are applying the Constitution in our society, meaning there are laws that are set forth. Hence, the legislators put forth laws. The executive branch goes ahead and signs those into law. The judicial system, it is responsible for making sure that we are adhering to the law, calling balls and strikes. But here's Governor Pritzker's statement. And don't mind me if I constantly are interjecting, because this is just the land of make-believe. It's like welcome to Fantasy Island, because they create this word salad to make it sound really like, yeah, I get that. But so he says to pervade under the guise of free speech. So automatically he's taking a position that states that we're not allowing free speech under this Supreme Court decision. This decision weaponizes religious freedom as a boon for bigotry. Once again, watch the wording, uh, you know, filtering in and sewing into his statement. Basically, that we are bigots, we're homophobic, we're transphobic, we're everything and anything. And yes, Kevin's been able to, if you're on Facebook Live, you can see that, or you can cut over to Facebook Live. And while you're there, hey, throw a chat in there. But it's up on the screen on Facebook Live. For you listening on the radio, well, you're just going to have to go to Governor Pritzker's Twitter page. I think it's probably also on his Facebook page, and it's under his political page, not his official governor capacity page. Or maybe I got that in reverse. Try both of them. Just pull JB Pritzker up. But basically, he says we're bigots now, and that doing so puts the burden on the millions of Americans who have fought for their right to love and live as they are. Throughout the 234-year legacy, the court has repeatedly had the opportunity to lead on the right side of history. Sometimes it has embraced that mantle of courage, but in its darkest hours, it has pushed civil rights to the wayside in the name of retrograde agenda, not yet 10 years out from Obergefell. I think I pronounced it
Obergefell.
Obergefell. Yep. Thank you, Kevin. This court has turned its back on its mandate to protect the civil rights of all Americans. Then he taglines this at the end: LGBTQ plus Americans deserve the same protections and rights as everyone else. Make no mistake, in Illinois, I promise that we will continue to fight to ensure you are respected and safe, no matter who you love. I don't know what his statement is truly stating there. Does that mean he's disavowing what the Supreme Court's ruling is? Kevin, what is your thoughts on that?
Okay, so I want to lay out a little bit about this case and everything too in the case that he's talking
about.
How
do you say that name again?
So that was Obergefell. So that one was the one that basically legalized gay marriage.
Okay.
From the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
There's a lot that goes into this though. Okay, so Obergefell was back in like the early 2010s, I believe, and like we know that one basically legalized, gave a right to marriage for people of the same sex. But then following that, there was a big case that was back in like 2018, 2019, and that was Masterpiece Cake Shop versus the Colorado Civil Rights Commission.
Mm-hmm.
And that was so that was a big one. That was known as like the gay baker case, because it was a baker who said that he would not bake cakes for gay weddings. He did offer the opportunity for people to have cakes, or not cakes, cupcakes or different baked goods for gay weddings. But he said that cakes were a specific art piece to him, and he would not make cakes for something that was against his religion, Christianity. And he was able to prove in his court case that because he did not make cakes for Halloween, like the American Halloween, or the or cakes that glorified drinking, anything like that, the Supreme Court in his case said that very specifically he could quote unquote discriminate based on sexuality because of his religion. But it was a very narrow opinion at that time. It said only if you can prove all these other things about your business, then you can deny service. But in this one, this is 303 Creative versus some other civil rights commission or something like that. This one is a website designer for weddings. And she had said that she would not make websites for same sex couples. And obviously that caused a major controversy into a Supreme Court lawsuit. And it basically expanded the entire scope of the Masterpiece Cake Shop opinion. So this one says now you don't necessarily have to prove that your business follows all these other points of Christianity or anything. If you are a Christian, period, or you have a religious belief or a value belief, you can deny service because of said values. So it expands kind of the understanding of freedom of expression in terms of business service. And some lefties have even tried to come after this opinion now, saying that, well, okay, if businesses are allowed to deny service based on values, then we can have anti-Christian businesses or anti-Trump supporter businesses, anti-conservative businesses. And to that, I don't know how you feel about that, DPB, but I would actually agree with that. Like I push the assertion that any business should be able to deny service to anyone for whatever reason, because it is not in the financial best interest of a business to deny service to anybody. But if you feel so strongly that you would rather assert your opinions rather than take someone's money and further your business, then I think you should have every right to do that, and put it out in the open. I mean, we have businesses now, like bigger businesses like Bud Light, Target, Adidas, that are pushing their political opinions, and the consumer has been boycotting those businesses. They respond with a free market strategy of showing the business how they feel. Why is it that a consumer can boycott a business, but a business cannot, if it wants to, boycott a consumer?
Exactly. And so good point, because ultimately at the root of it and at the root of everything, uh, contrary to Governor Pritzker's statement on this particular decision made by the Supreme Court, we have a safety net in society. It's called our Constitution. Once again, I read at the beginning of the show, if you're just joining us here at Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington, Normal and beyond. Catch us on Facebook, subscribe on YouTube to the DPB show. Please to subscribe and share. You can catch us on Twitter and on Rumble. But if you're just tuning in, I read the Declaration from the Declaration of Independence. I basically a truncated version of the Declaration, what the part that I believe is so poignant, because it says we have the right, everyone. Where in the reading of the Declaration does it exclude gay people, LGBTQ plus people? Where does it exclude? Because ultimately, Kevin, as you point out, we can continue to add on and add on and add on and add on and try to slice, dice, and try to exclude, or, well, that's what they're trying to say, is that LGBTQ plus people are excluded. No, they're not. You have, as you just said, as an individual, you have the right to the life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. If you are running a business, a private business, this isn't a government sector bureaucracy or public school system, which even then, I still believe there's an argument, because how are those institutions funded? By individuals.
Yep. Well, and now I'm even getting texts from your wife, DPB, and
Yeah, because she knows better than to text it to me, because I'm not.
Well,
I don't have that ability.
But she asked a question, and I'm sure some of the viewers and some of the listeners are thinking the same thing about my rant I just went on. And she asked, "What about denying service based on race?" Then, and controversial opinion. I think businesses should be able to deny service to anyone at any time for any reason. If it is a private business, now I wouldn't recommend it. Like I said, as I'm one of my majors at ISU is marketing. I do a lot of business classes. I can tell you it is not in your best interest in any way for if your business's sole purpose or primary purpose is to make money, which pretty much every business, their main purpose is to make money. Then you should never deny service to anybody for any reason, really.
Yeah.
Unless obviously they're being problematic in your storefront or anything like that. But you shouldn't deny service based on values or anything like that, really, for the purpose of making money. However, I think you should have a right to, whether that's based on, if you want to deny service based on race, sexuality, religion, anything like that, again, I wouldn't advise it. I don't agree with it, but I think you should have the right to if it's your own private business.
Well, Kevin, you ask a good question, and so does my beautiful wife. I'm going to get into the heart of that issue because, see, denying somebody service because of a conviction based on your faith versus based on ethnicity, race, color, creed, that is a whole different context, I believe, in why they're denying. The denying based on something that doesn't adhere to your moral values is totally different. I believe that's part of the battle that we face here as society right now. There is no restoration of our country without confronting the issue of sin, and that's what the baker's doing. The baker is saying that this is behavior that's sinful, and I won't be party to your sin. And I'm going to get well into that. I know that Pastor Timothy James Farrell hit upon this a lot in his half hour, but I'm going to walk this out even further because ultimately, where does freedom come from? The graveyards in most of our federal cemeteries are filled with the sacrifice that guarantees the freedoms. And what JB is trying to slice and dice, nobody's rights have been taken away from them. You can't add rights. You can only have rights. But we're going to talk about that here when we come back at Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal and beyond. All right. There you are. There I am. The only thing I could find to sip on is this Coca-Cola Zero.
I know we were all out of water in the station right now. That's why I brought a Coke Zero for myself and my energy drink.
Well, if anybody's out there and hears, we're thirsty. We need water. If you're listening, no, just kidding. I don't want cases of water dropped off here at GPM. That means that we would have to put them in the refrigerator. I will make sure that I do a better job of getting to the station with a water in hand. Thank you. All right, hold on. Now, my beautiful bride they are not denying service to anyone, not anyone, just specific services, only ones that celebrate something that is against one's religious beliefs, which is right. That once again, it gets back, and we're going to get into this.
And there's even another question and this might be one I should pose on air, but why would you want to patronize a business? Why would you want to force a business that does not want to provide a service to you to provide said service?
No.
Because imagine if it won where they were on the other side and it ruled on the other side and said, you have to provide service to whoever, to a same-sex couple. Do you think that service would be of the same quality? Would you if you were being forced to do something, would you put the same amount of effort into it as if it was something that you wanted to do and something that you were voluntarily doing, that you were not really voluntarily, you're getting paid for it, but you know what I mean? Is like, why would you want to go to somebody that doesn't even want to do that for you? I just don't get that.
Yeah. Hold on. I have a guest that's. I'm responding. So, Kevin, you bring up a good point. As I go into the First Amendment, you know what that states, right?
Yep.
So, how can
you have 15 seconds?
How can you deny somebody religious freedom and liberty by giving that religious freedom to somebody else?
Mm-hmm.
That's what we're saying here. All right, we're going back live here.
Yep. It's going to be loud in your ear for a second.
The celebration of freedom. Here we are. We just passed July 1st yesterday and into the month of freedom. That's what I'm going to proclaim. We are now in the midst of the month of freedom, celebrating freedom, liberty, set the captives free. You know what? We just so appreciate you joining us here on Sundays at Cities 92.9. If you'd really like to get a new twist to the DPB show, head on over to Facebook Live. We're live there. We also can be found on Twitter. Rumble, and YouTube. And please subscribe, like, share, all of those things. Push it out to the world, because we know we're here every Sunday, every weekend, every weekday, delivering content that you don't hear on other media platforms. So thank you once again. Also, the text line is always open at 309-451-9299. It also doubles as our studio line. So feel free to tell us, what are you doing this 4th of July, or this weekend before the 4th of July holiday? Getting back into the topic, if you weren't with us before break, I'm going to bring you up to speed real quick. Questions about Governor Pritzker basically coming out and saying that he's not going to comply. It's funny that he now is finding himself in defense of his own arguments as it pertains to the Supreme Court ruling. Governor Pritzker, I am pretty certain that, yes, as states, you have the right to act in a certain manner.
It's enshrined in the 10th Amendment.
That's right. Yep. However, when federal law pertains, I don't think you can basically just vow to say, I'm not following it. I mean, you have certain rights, you're right, that have been given to you. But for instance, the federal firearms license is one of these. And I know the legislation just came through. Governor Pritzker signed it into law, that basically we're going to HB, I think it's 3751. It could be 3571. I always get them transposed, but it's where we are going to allow municipalities, cities, to hire on non-citizens as law enforcement officers. So what it sets up is non-citizens being able to arrest citizens.
So here's what I see exactly. It is 3751.
See, I got it right.
The summary of the bill text provides that an individual who is not a citizen but is legally authorized to work in the United States under federal law is authorized to apply for the position of police officer, subject to all requirements and limitations other than citizenship, to which other applicants are subject.
Which, one of the laws that's out there, the law of the land, is the Federal Firearms License Act, where you cannot possess a firearm, legally possess a firearm as someone who is not a citizen of the United States.
And to be clear about this legislation, there's actually sponsors that I know of that were Republicans. There are Republicans that voted for it. So this is not a Democrat versus Republican bill. This is a I don't even know what you call it.
In a free state, it would have been a Republican Democrat bill, but not the state of Illinois, where we have Republicans who are willing to, under the guise of compromise. I don't know what you're compromising other than the values of the Republican Party, which I can go into great length at, and I'll continue to walk this out as we hit upon this. But I want to get to the First Amendment issue, which you can't give other people liberties and rights and freedoms at the expense of taking someone's away. That doesn't work. That's not what the Constitution states. But we're going to dig a little bit deeper into this. This is the season of freedom. See how I did that? I went from the month of freedom to now the season of freedom.
It's like Pride Month now. You're just doing everything.
I'm just going all in. Hey, fly those flags, that American flag. I've got mine here. Look, you see it right there. If you're joining us on Facebook Live, I've got Old Glory flying over here to my right. Got the new Cubs hat that I purchased up in Chicago. And I'm going to talk a little bit about my experience up in Chicago the other day with my friend Chuck Erickson, who is going to join us in the second hour in studio to talk a little bit about our Constitution and the Declaration of Independence and the three branches of government. And we're going to do that when we come back here at Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington, Normal, and beyond. Oh, boy. Okay.
So you went to the Cubs game the other day.
I did. I went to the Cubs game. For those out there, look at this. Yes, you're right. It took me a while. Kevin, I don't know about you, but and my wife can attest to this. And yes, my dear wife, if you're watching us on Facebook, I am going to get to those in the chat. Oh, Donnie, hey, the true limited government position is that government shouldn't be involved in marriage at all. When you get in bed with government, don't be surprised that the disease it spreads. Yes, I agree. That's called property rights, which we don't really have anymore.
That was in response to me talking about how businesses should have the
Okay.
right to.
Yeah. I mean, and Donnie and I agree on about 85, 90%. I really, truly believe we've gotten so far from the constitutional principles and what does that really look like when you walk it out? But ultimately, it goes to the fact that you can't give somebody else rights, God-given rights, by taking away somebody else's liberties and freedoms and their right to expression and to practice their faith or whatever it might be. And yes, we're in a quagmire. I mean, obviously the founders were genius in putting together this document they call the Constitution, which I have my pocket one right there. There we go. I should talk to the camera. That's right.
Yeah,
But you're over here. Here is my pocket Constitution, a little tattered, a little worn. That's right. It's the Darren Bailey for governor Constitution, made in the USA because it matters. It is my certified vaccine passport too, which
I was wondering though, DPB. So how did you get up to Chicago? Did you drive there?
Yeah. So that's what I was going to tell you. Thank you, but I got distracted. Thank you, Donnie, for the comment. Appreciate you, buddy, tuning in here and watching the show. So yeah, Chuck and I drove up. We had to plot our course strategically, right? Because they had shut down the streets of Chicago for NASCAR. And I saw it, it's a huge course. So there's no way we could have gotten off on Lakeshore Drive, even though some people believe that Lakeshore Drive is a speedway in of itself at times. But we had to kind of circumvent the city, come on in off of Armstead up towards Ashland and coming on the backside.
Yeah.
But I also want to tell you kind of a God incidence when we were up there, because we ended up parking in a easy out parking about a block away from the stadium. And the lady had a lanyard on that said right to life.
Oh, that's amazing.
And a scapula. And I was like, and she owned the building. And she could fit in there, I think it was 9 cars at $60 a piece. So you do the math, that's 540 a days. There were 4 games that week. I'm thinking, Kevin, I need to go up and buy a building and sell $60 parking spots. But I was glad to give it to her because knowing that she was on she's part of the Constitution, the right to life. That circumvents everything else. Hey, we're going back live here in
about 30 seconds.
About 30 seconds, Kevin.
But I was just wondering, because so when I went up to Wrigley a little over a week ago for the Morgan Wallen concert that was there.
Oh, that's right. That was downtown, right?
That was in Wrigley. That was at Wrigley Field.
Okay. Yeah, that's right. I remember that. Yes.
So I was there, and I took a little bit more of a scenic route because I took the train from Amtrak up to Joliet, and then Joliet, my mom came pick me up. Then me and my sister took the Metra up to Chicago, and then the Red Line from just on the street from Union and the Red Line. Every time I tell somebody I took the Red Line, they're always like, "Oh, well, you took your life into your own hands." But so I really got a view of how the city is doing right now, and it is just, man, the amount of homelessness that is just they just take up shop on the Red Line because it's shelter for them. It's insane.
And I think that's where we're at. We're going back live, but I want to continue that conversation as we come out of break. Well, it's already started. I got the chatters in the live Facebook chat room. We also have texters. I always have my beautiful wife listening to the show, and I hope that many of you are listening on the radio too. And when you have a chance, just switch on over to the Facebook Live or catch us on Twitter, YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share with all of your friends. And Rumble. We do have Rumble, but YouTube right now we're trying to really push that. Appreciate you. I have short clips there. Kevin across the way has helped me really orchestrate most of that, because if it were left up to me, it wouldn't get done. That's how it goes. But I love this comment from my wife, and before we get back into what we were discussing before we went to break, is she makes a good statement, Kevin, when it comes to how we are to treat others. And I do want to walk this out, because I do believe that there's a lot of this that is prefaced based on how our founding fathers, when they put together the Declaration of Independence, they were doing that in a church. Now, granted, it's not the church that you have to join. It's not a church that was set up that everybody had to be a member of. It was just, that was part of the religious freedom. And that's what they wanted, because that was separate from Britain at the time, because there was a state church in Britain. There was one church. And to this day, it's somewhat like that. Hey, just so you know, our guest, I don't know if we can shoot out to him really quick. Our friend who I told you about, a link so he can jump on.
I can do that now.
Okay. But this is America. A white person should not have to look up a business to see if they are racist against whites before entering. We are America. Now, preface this for you that are just tuning in. The question was posed to Kevin based on his argument as he is walking through it, is basically, can somebody deny somebody service because of their race? Obviously, we kind of secured that through our civil rights movement, that you couldn't do something like that. But she goes on to say, to see if they are racist against whites before entering. We are America. We embrace and welcome all races, ethnicities, and sexual preferences. Welcome. We love you. The line is drawn when asked to go against religious freedom, which is the argument that I was kind of trying to make there, and I didn't know if I did an ample job. And if you think that you have a other way of looking at that or twisting that, or because that's what we do here, truly, we're trying to seek what is this document stating when it comes to religious freedom, liberties. In the First Amendment, it is pretty clear on what it states. It says Congress shall make, no, once again, Congress. Now, Kevin, 3 branches of government, right?
Yep.
I wish JB Pritzker was listening right now. JB, 3 branches of government. Congress, or the General Assembly, is the legislative branch. That's who institutes laws, right? That's who writes the laws. Make no law respecting the establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for redress of grievances. I think that First Amendment is put in place for the very reason it says everything. You can't violate somebody's right, take somebody's right away to give it to somebody else while taking somebody's right away. So ultimately, the religious freedom aspect of this, when it came to the cake maker, is this, that the cake maker was following their religious conviction. And as you pointed out, it didn't just pertain to weddings. It pertained to Halloween. Evidence was there that they weren't going to celebrate something that was counter to their faith. I get it. I think it's protected. It's a protected right. I think it's pretty simple. And it was decided as such. Yes, thank you. I appreciate you doing that. But that's what the First Amendment states. You're getting into the back office here as we're kind of, you never know. We're trying to land planes. This is air traffic control here in studio at Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal and beyond, because you can find us on Facebook. We're live there right now, on Twitter, on Rumble, and on YouTube. Please go, like it, send a chat in. Appreciate all you that have joined us on the Facebook Live. I'm looking at the chat. Saw my friend Donnie in there earlier. He always has good questions. Now, Donnie and I differ in certain opinions. My friend is a libertarian, which, once again, fully support my libertarian brothers in their ability to voice their arguments as it pertains to their way of life and how they view the Constitution. Also, those who are Democrats, you know what? They are few and far between, as I believe. It's good to always encounter a Democrat. If you happen to be a Democrat out there listening to the DPB show, please chime in at 309-451-9299. That is our text line. Also, it is our studio line, so you can go ahead and definitely call in if you'd like. I know that we're anticipating a guest here to talk about freedom here shortly.
Right now.
He's calling in right now. So he's calling in. He's not phoning in. All right. It sounds like I've got our guest on the line. There it is. It says on the line, Darren, right in front of me on our Facebook page. Darren Bailey, is that you?
Well, it is. I'm sorry I couldn't join you with the video. I didn't even think about that. Cindy and I we're on the road, so
Well,
glad to be with you.
Well, and Darren, obviously I turn to you on a weekend like this before the 4th of July holiday because it is all about freedom and the establishment of a free people. And no longer are we slaves, but a lot of that came from our founding fathers. And you have always been a guiding light to the history of our nation and why we have this Day of Independence, because the Declaration is very clear on how we are to be governed going forward. In fact, before you jumped on the line, I was commenting on Governor Pritzker's statement where he basically admits that he's going to go against what the Supreme Court decision was because he's going to fight it. And I didn't realize that was the job of the executive branch, was to fight the judicial branch.
Yeah, isn't that amazing? Isn't that amazing? So just a tyrannical governor, that's the meaning of the word, and that's what our founding fathers were dealing with almost now 250 years ago. And, that's what our lawsuit dealt with. And it's just, I guess the bottom line is, what are we, the people, going to do about it? I know when we were traveling the state campaigning shortly after the lawsuit, when we'd stop at places, we'd walk in without the mask on boldly. Now, out of respect, if a business insisted that we put it on, then we made a decision. Do I stay or do I go? And eventually you began to learn and understand and remember the people, the places that, stood for freedom, stood for our rights and respected liberty. And that's who you patronized. But, unfortunately, too many people just complied and didn't ask any questions. And that is not what this country stands for. That is not this freedom that we are insured and guaranteed, this freedom that the men and women who served in our armed forces to protect. That's to simply comply with a tyrannical man like JB Pritzker. That is not what this is all about. And so we have days ahead of us that we've got to make some decisions. Do I want to create waves? Do I want to ruffle the waters, or do I just want to kind of, be quiet and get along to go along? Because I can tell you, history tells us where that will lead to.
Well, freedom comes at a price. It always will. We know that to be free in our faith as Christian people, that came at the price of blood through Jesus Christ. But it also, here in America, it came at a high price. And I know you just had the opportunity, you and your beautiful wife, Cindy, to view the cemeteries of, our federal cemeteries where many lay to rest. And once again, what was the sacrifice? It was blood. That's what freedom, unfortunately, I wish there was another way it could happen. But to be free, it comes at a cost. And that was paid by many. You and I spoke about this on Memorial Day. But here we are, a month removed. And of course, we just went through the month of June, which there was a lot of controversy over. And yet, if you really look at the context of what our Constitution says, it does give people the right to broadcast to the masses how they believe they should be allowed. I'll always defend the right of a Democrat, a libertarian, a socialist to put forth their argument. However, you can't take someone's right away to give somebody else. And I know you and Cindy, as Christian conservative people, adhere to what our God-given rights were. And that is something I think that we're kind of starting to breach upon, is that we're looking to take somebody's rights away in order to give them to someone else. And that's not what the Declaration of Independence nor the Bill of Rights states.
That's awesome. And that's exactly right. Today, Cindy and I, we worshiped with our second son, Cole, and his family, and they worship at Freedom Church in Salem, Illinois, and it was an awesome service. But the pastor today, recognized our independence, our liberties, our God-given rights. He recognized, that were coming up on the 4th of July. And that's one thing that he talked about. People our age, we understand and know how it used to be. But one thing that we forget is this up and coming generation, the way things are today is the only way they've ever known. And when you take true history out of our class where, our junior high and high schoolers aren't even studying, the Constitution and our situation when I was in school, and in many places it's not today. So when it's just great plan that's unfolding before our eyes, and we're allowing it. But that's one thing we have to remember when some of us, and mainly the older generation, when we wonder why things are happening the way they are, well, it's probably because we are not reminding this up and coming generation and then teaching them of how it should be, and especially how it used to be, because if this is all they know, then this up and coming generation is acceptable of that. And I think that's one of the reasons that we're seeing, things unfold and our freedoms being taken away without much resistance. So I'm of the belief that time is of the essence, and we have got to stand up against this nonsense and speak out, just like you're doing today.
Well, this is the month of freedom. In fact, I've declared it the season of freedom. But it's not only that, Darren, and I do want to make sure that I get this announcement out there to wish your wife a very early happy birthday. Cindy Bailey has a birthday on the 4th of July. How cool is that?
Pretty cool, isn't it, David?
It is.
I'm grateful.
And I hear there just possibly might be a few people at your house on Tuesday evening to celebrate that.
I think by far the biggest birthday party that I've ever had.
Well,
I'm getting ready to turn 57, and I am proud of it and grateful for another year once ahead to celebrate with family and friends. As a matter of fact, I just got done. My grandchildren, we went to an amazing new restaurant that we have found down in Salem, Illinois, and they have a mechanical bull. And so they were just determined that I ride on the mechanical bull, which I will say I did.
You accomplished that. It took you 57 years to ride the mechanical bull. Hey, Darren, have you ridden a mechanical bull, Darren?
I have not, but I do have her on video. So
you're going to live vicariously through your wife, then.
Yes, thank you.
My son was the one operating it, so I thought, okay, this is definitely his time for payback if he wants to turn it on high speed.
He can launch. That doesn't look good. Cindy, you attending your birthday party in a wheelchair is not the way that I envisioned your 57th birthday party.
That's what I was thinking. After I had went full circle one time, I said, okay, I'm ready to get on.
Hey, we so appreciate you guys. You guys have been truly defenders of freedom in the state of Illinois, and it doesn't always seem like we are a free state, but we are free, and our freedom doesn't come from a governor or a state legislator or even our judicial branch. The freedom truly comes for the price that was paid on the cross of Calvary many years ago. We are free. And there's no doubt about that. It says in John 8:36, if the Son sets you free, you will be free indeed. I also believe that the blood and the sacrifice on so many battlefields, foreign and domestic, were those people lie in those cemeteries because of the greatest sacrifice of all, to lay down their lives. Hey, we appreciate you guys jumping on the line with us on this weekend before Independence Day. Tanya and I look forward to seeing you on Tuesday night. God bless you guys, and thank you for being part of the DPB show.
Hey, thank you. Thanks a lot for having us on. Have a great week, and see you Tuesday.
All right. See
And
you guys
anyone else
soon.
that wants to come with you.
Okay, we'll bring them. There you go. You heard
All right.
you heard Darren's give an
Yes.
open
That's an
invitation.
invite.
There you
Yes.
go.
All
All right.
right.
Well, thank you guys. Hey, we're got to go cut the break. We're a little long, so we're going to run to that real quick, and then we'll be back shortly after break. Okay. Obviously unexpected. I reached out to Darren. You just never know. Darren has been a stalwart of freedom and preaching uh, the consistency of the greatest document outside of the Bible, the basic instruction before leaving Earth. But the Bible is what we lean into. But so much of our Constitution is founded upon the principles of Judeo Christian belief. That doesn't mean that everybody in America has to adhere to the Judeo Christian principles. In fact, I do see an aligning. And we're going to play a little video when we come back from Ronald Reagan and kind of break it down and piece it out. It's kind of a special gift to my friend Chuck Erickson, who should be joining us in studio here in the 2 o'clock hour. But, you know, the bottom line is this, and I see it happening. Muslims, Jews, Christians are finding themselves aligning on so many different values because of what is transpiring culturally that is inconsistent with all those faith traditions. In fact, here's a challenge that I have for Governor JB Pritzker. And I don't know. I'm only hearing this because it's what he has reported himself to be. He and his family are Jewish people. They report to be this is their faith tradition. And if Governor Pritzker is truly that's his faith tradition, I have a question for him. Is he truly following the faith tradition of Moses and what Moses did when he came down off that Mount Sinai with the 2 tablets? Is he adhering and following that? I mean, I watch and listen to him in so many of his statements, and I don't see where it's walking itself out. Now, a lot of you might be saying to yourself, but that's a very simplistic set of commandments, and it doesn't expand upon a lot of things. Well, the Constitution is very specific, and we're going to cover that here when we come back. Was cut a little short. I said to my audience on Facebook, and if you're out there listening to us on the radio, you can always join us on Facebook, Twitter, Rumble, or YouTube. Please subscribe and like and push that out to as many friends as you can. But basically what I was stating is this, and sorry if it's reiterating for those that are following us on Facebook Live, but, you know, the principles that we adhere to are Judeo-Christian principles. They come from our founders. Once again, they were escaping England for a plethora of different reasons, mostly for life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, which comes through their faith and their belief, religious freedom, religious liberties. And what does that necessarily mean? We can slice and dice. And I would have never believed as a young man who sat in a school in Dunlap, Illinois, taking a civics class where it was mandatory. We had to pass 8th grade civics in order to advance to high school. In high school, there wasn't a requirement per se to graduate from high school. However, when I attended Illinois State University, I was required to take the Constitution, a test, or the other alternative was a class called Poli-Sci 105. And it was a requirement. I wouldn't confer my degree at Illinois State University without having that formal training in the Constitution, in civics, and understanding. And my point being here is I'm trying to walk around this issue and not really walk around it because it is complex, because we've created so much complexity because we've done away with civics requirement in 8th grade to advance to high school. We've done, as far as I know, Kevin, were you required to take the Constitution or the Poli-Sci 105 to graduate from Illinois State University?
So yes, so there. Well, it's not Poli-Sci 105. It was oh my gosh, I forgot exactly what the number was, but there was a politics class that you take, and it's called like Introduction to American Politics. But the entire class basically leads you through the entire Bill of Rights and the Constitution as a whole.
So it's still a requirement at the university level.
There are a few options for what can check off that box, but that is the one that the majority of students take because it's known as to be one of the most interesting ones. Because the professor of that is Eric Rankin, and he actually is a very captivating professor. And yeah, he's on the other side of the aisle, but I sat front row in his class and would argue with him about things all the time, and he was very respectful of it and open to it. So
he's one I love to engage into political discussions with Eric Rankin. I do find him engaging. You're right.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't agree on most things, but yet what we agree upon is the Constitution gives us the right to differ.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have to be the same. I don't want a world of sameness. I do try to am I saying that? Hold on. Let me see if I can get this out. Prophesize. Did I say that right?
Prophesize.
That's right. See, Kevin, if it's longer than 3 syllables, Kevin always has to help me with it. Even though I can get innocuous, I can get some types of words out at times. It depends. As I get older, I think my vocabulary gets weaker, but I'm doing my best. But net of it is this: you can disagree. This is what it states in the Constitution, the Bill of Rights. Do I try to encourage people to live by a faith? By all means. Do I encourage people that there is a faith that I believe is above all other faith? Just like I believe there's a country that's above all other countries. It's exceptional. I believe the Christian faith is exceptional. No other faith tradition practices forgiveness. That is something that's beyond, and forgiveness being something that came through the entire Paschal mystery of dying, rising, and let's see, die, rise, go forth. Yeah, die, rise, and go forth, obviously. But that's what the Constitution, this document on the weekend before Independence Day, sets us apart. We are exceptional. Hold on. I got to hold it over here because Kevin's giving me direction. Kevin, they could see you giving me direction.
Well, you need it sometimes, DPB.
I need a lot of direction. Any guy? Hey, I was at the Cubs game on Friday. I still haven't got an opportunity to tell you about my experience up there. I'm going to let Chuck do that because he's the one who commanded the vehicle and drove us up there. But we're going to talk about that. But really, getting back to exceptionalism, this document sets us apart from every other country in the world on this planet. It's unique. No other document provides people the rights, the freedoms, the liberties that our Constitution does. You don't get it in another land. That's why so many people are doing what they can to become citizens of the United States of America. Hey, we're going to talk much more about that when we come back at the top of the hour's break here on Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal and beyond. See you on the other side of break. I'm giving Chuck a hard time. Chuck will be announcing his arrival here at any moment, which means that one of us will have to dodge out of studio or prop the door open or something. Chuck's listening right now. No, he's not, because he's driving his car. He's not watching us on Facebook Live. But, I just want to hit upon that. That's called property rights, which we don't really have anymore. It's just Donnie on the last comment. Hey, feel free to comment, like, share on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and Rumble. We appreciate everything that we have, or we appreciate all the different platforms that we're able to take advantage of now. And once again, that's because the guy that's sitting over there, well, he's not sitting over there any longer. His chair is vacant. That's Kevin Ferris. He's going to let our next guest into studio. But, like I said, this document, if you don't have a copy of it, by all means, contact me. Here at the studio, we have some copies out in the front. Love to get you your own personalized copy. I know this one of mine is a little tattered, and it's tattered for a reason, because I carry it around in my back pocket and I refer to it when I can, and when it is needed that I refer to it, because I'm challenged too. It's amazing that there are not that many pages in here. In fact, in this particular one, when you get to the 27th the 27th amendment, it's 45 pages from the start, from the number 1, which goes to the Declaration of Independence, to the 27th amendment. And it's worthy of knowing what's in the context of this. This is an amazing piece of work, which has survived, as Darren Bailey just said, going on 250 years as a country. And yes, there have been many attempts to circumvent this document. Thank God for our judicial system, which is one of 3 branches of government. And that's the intent of our judicial process, is to take this document and to call balls and strikes, to tell the originalist version of it is the pages are true. The wording is true. Now there are others that believe it's more of a living document and is meant to be interpreted. I don't believe was the intention of our founders. Once again, that's why we do have a legislative branch. They should not be legislating from the judicial branch, nor should we be legislating from the executive branch. That's what was ruled with with President Biden's overreach when he tried to put forth a student loan debt relief, without having Congress put forth a bill where it was voted on and that the people agreed to it. Instead, he was just going to ramrod this thing through on the American people. And that's not what the executive branch is to do. Just like I commented about Governor Pritzker, he has shown himself to be more of a tyrant than a governor. He rules people rather than govern the people. And that's really sad. We've lived through Governor Pritzker's tyranny going on 5 years now. And it doesn't seem to be showing that it's going to change over the next few years. And that's where the people, and that's what it says here, that the people can change that. The people have got to unite and rise up and do something different. And without that, then we're going to continue to get what we have, out of control state government. Even on the federal level, what do we have? We have an out of control federal government. That's demonstrated in the different agency positions, like the Department of Justice, the Central Intelligence Agency, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the Department of Education. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. Come on in, Chuck. You gotta come in. No, we're Facebook Live, so you're going to pull up a seat. Kevin's going to readjust everything here so we get you into camera. Watch out for those cords underneath there. Yeah, I'm going to give him this mic. I'm going to take this mic. Okay, so I'm back. Oh, I'm colliding. These mics are colliding. Chuck brought his copy of his pocket constitution. It's good to see.
There's a declaration. Just make sure we get everything framed here.
All you have is the declaration. You don't have all the amendments in there?
No, the Constitution and the Declaration.
Okay, it's combined.
Have you guys get a little bit closer.
Yeah, you're going to come a little closer here, Chuck. So you might have to watch out for the cords down below here. Let me slide those down and out of the way. There you go. There you go. Chuck, you're going to have to come a little closer. Like we were in the picture out in front of Wrigley Field, okay. Chuck.
You'll be able to see.
And there you go. But don't move the mic in front of me, Chuck. Whatever you do.
Yeah, you need pretty DPB in there.
Yeah. I could back up, Chuck, if you need me to. No, I guess I got to come in further. There we go. Now I'm set. Thanks. Chuck, you got your Cub hat on too, and so do I. It's almost like we planned this.
You're coming back.
Go Cubs, go.
7 seconds. Here we go.
Go Cubs, go.
It is the DPB show, the David Paul Blumenshine show, live here on the weekend before the 4th of July, July 2nd. Can you believe it? The month of July in 2023. Here we are, 6 months into the new year. It's not a new year anymore. It's an old year. We're halfway through the year. But the best part about it is we move from the month of June, which unfortunately in our current culture was now put into position. You know, it's supposed to be Father's Day weekend. It's supposed to be the kickoff of summer. Instead, we had more publicity on the fact that it was Pride. First, it started out, we had a Pride Day, I think, and then a Pride Month, and now we have a Pride season. And then, of course, we had to acknowledge that on the lawn of the South Lawn of the White House, and we had to fly the colors of the Pride flag. And really, it is counterintuitive to what the month of July is about, which is this is the month of freedom. Freedom is a lifestyle. It truly is. And it ultimately is afforded us by this document that we were talking about before we went to break. And I so appreciate you guys that are out there joining us, listening to us on 92.9 on the radio side, but you can also switch over if you're able to the Facebook Live or to Twitter, Rumble, YouTube. Definitely like, subscribe, push us out there, because we know we are covering territory that you're not going to find in the mainstream media. In fact, in the next hour, or in our final hour of the DPB show, we're going to cover territory that I definitely don't believe you're going to hear anywhere else this holiday weekend as we celebrate Independence Day, the day that basically sets us apart from every other country and why we're exceptional. In fact, I have a little audio that I want to kind of bring in, have Kevin bring that to us here, because I think we're going to listen to the first half of it, because this is Ronald Reagan, and he basically tells us what it means to be a free people, a patriotic people. And then I'm going to ask Chuck Erickson, yes, frequent contributor, my friend, county board member, attorney at law, is going, and also somebody that knows more about Reagan than I do, is going to comment.
If we look to the answer as to why for so many years we achieved so much, prospered as no other people on earth, it was because here in this land, we unleashed the energy and individual genius of man to a greater extent than has ever been done before. Freedom and the dignity of the individual have been more available and assured here than in any other place on earth. The price for this freedom at times has been high, but we have never been unwilling to pay that price. Those who say that we're in a time when there are no heroes, they just don't know where to look. The sloping hills of Arlington National Cemetery, with its row upon row of simple white markers bearing crosses or stars of David, they add up to only a tiny fraction of the price that has been paid for our freedom. Each one of those markers is a monument to the kind of hero I spoke of earlier. Their lives ended in places called Belleau Wood, the Argonne, Omaha Beach, Salerno, and halfway around the world on Guadalcanal, Tarawa, Pork Chop Hill, the Chosin Reservoir, and in 100 rice paddies and jungles of a place called Vietnam. Under one such marker lies a young man, Martin Treptow, who left his job in a small town barber shop in 1917 to go to France with the famed Rainbow Division. There on the Western Front, he was killed trying to carry a message between battalions under heavy artillery fire. We're told that on his body was found a diary. On the flyleaf, under the heading, My Pledge, he had written these words: America must win this war. Therefore, I will work, I will save, I will sacrifice, I will endure. I will fight cheerfully and do my utmost as if the issue of the whole struggle depended on me alone. We must realize that no arsenal or no weapon in the arsenals of the world is so formidable.
Well, I want you to cut it off because I know that that gets a little long, and that goes against really etiquette of playing videos, and we'll play the rest of it out. But just to comment on the first part of this, Chuck, you know, I guess to interject something before we get into the discussion, because this goes back to, obviously this was a president who believed that we were a shining light on the hill, an exceptional nation. He said that, you know, those who don't see heroes today haven't spent the time going and visiting the cemeteries. We talked with Darren Bailey in the last hour about that, because he's someone that I lean into when it comes to the history of this country, because he's very versed, has read a lot more about it than I have. You yourself have read a lot more about Reagan and obviously his passion for this country. And so I guess my question, Chuck, is, you know, heroes still exist, right, in this country, because we can find them in the cemeteries. But do we truly have heroes that are living, that are exuding the patriotism and the wherewithal to fight for this document we call a constitution? What do you think?
I mean, I think we still do. I mean, it's just something that people have to look within themselves. I mean, everybody has a part to play. And some of us have a large part and some of us have a small part, but everybody has a part to play. And everybody's got to play it. You know, Reagan says at the end, you know, the soldiers saying, you know, if the whole cause of the whole struggle depends on me alone. I mean, that's what the soldiers said. You know, unfortunately, you know, that's not always true. We've got to be a team. We've got to work together. But if everybody works together and keeps pushing back, I mean, we can do it. I mean,
you know, Chuck, and I know you brought your copy of your Declaration of Independence and your Bill of Rights, the Constitution, in there. And we opened up the show with, we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Chuck, I guess you said just there in your comment that it's a team approach. It requires that we all come around the commonality that we have in the midst of the context of the Declaration and our Constitution, right? Our Bill of Rights, and that we unify around that. It doesn't go into great detail of that, who these people are. It says all men, meaning obviously all men and women, all people, let's put it that way. All people are created equal. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, Chuck. The Governor Pritzker, has come out with a statement, and I just had it shared this with our audience in the first part of the show, that he says today's Supreme Court decision allows LGBTQ discrimination to pervade, and under the guise of free speech, this decision weaponizes religious freedom. I guess I guess the comment that I want to make there, Chuck, and I want to find out if you're seeing this the same way. The executive branch of government isn't meant to question the judicial branch, is it?
well, I think the executive branch can question the jurisprudence, the legal philosophy of the court. I mean, but at the same time, you have to maintain the integrity of the court. I mean, Reagan strove to put justices on the U.S. Supreme Court that, believe that the judges don't make the law, they interpret it.
That's right.
Okay. They don't make things up
No.
because they have an agenda. They don't make it up, and they don't make it up as they go along, or they just ignore it because it doesn't fit the agenda. I mean, this is the law,
We have a branch of government that does that, right?
Well, I mean, I think sometimes courts do that. I think courts should interpret law, not make law.
That's right. Well, and I say call balls and strikes, right? Because the legislators, they put forth bills
Mhm.
and they are signed into law by the president of the United States. He executes, hence the term or
The executive branch.
executive branch. So he's executing upon the people's interest, because the House of Representatives or Congress represents the people. The judicial branch, they're calling balls and strikes. And when it comes to balls and strikes, Chuck and I spent Friday up in Chicago watching an amazing baseball game. The Chicago Cubs taking on the Cleveland, now they're called the Guardians. They used to be the Cleveland Indians back when the World Series of 2016 happened, and we took down the Cleveland Indians in 7 games to realize the first World Series in 108 years. But I digress a little bit, because we did win 10-1. Chuck and I were hoping for a shutout. That did not happen. Unfortunately, it would have been nice to see 10-0 for a game in Chicago. But Chuck, the bottom line is this: we have a document that we adhere to that dictates pretty much everything we do in this land.
It's supposed to. I mean, the Constitution is supposed to hover over the legislative branch. It's supposed to hover over the executive branch, and it's supposed to hover over the judicial branch. It's supposed to be the guiding document. I mean, so if you look at the Declaration set forth the principles. And then when they came along and did the Constitution, they tried to put those principles within a legal framework, okay, within a governmental framework, and that's what they were trying to do, and they did a pretty good job of it. Now we just got to follow it.
Well, and here we are. We're 234 years, heading towards 250 years as a constitutional republic governed by this document. Obviously, Independence Day, you have 1776 moving onward into the future. And we find ourselves challenged in so many ways, because I think that we've gotten into a point where we're legislating from the bench, which is something that came up earlier in the show. We were asking about this argument that Pritzker puts forth that, that these rights have been taken away from the LGBTQ plus community. And I don't know how you can take rights away from one group of people and give them to another by denying somebody their constitutional rights.
No, you can't. I mean, the origin of the rights is God. They set that forth in the Declaration. God is the origin of the rights, okay? And you have God-given rights, and one is to worship God. And, to sit there and say you have to do things that violate your religious beliefs, it's just crazy.
Well, and so that's where I think this argument's going to continue to play out, is people that are wanting to rewrite the Constitution, just like rewriting history. We were talking just before we went to break the last time, and you came in the studio, that I was required to move from the 8th grade to high school to take a civics class. Were you required to do that, Jack? Yeah. And then to move on from college or high school to college, there wasn't a requirement in a high school. I didn't have to pass a test, but to confer my degree in my undergraduate work at Illinois State University, I had to either take the Constitution or take a course called Poli-Sci 105. I don't think they call it that any longer. Kevin said it's called something else, but he had to pass that class, right, Kevin?
Yeah, I did. So it was, I like I said, I couldn't really remember. It was basically intro to United States civics was basically what it was. And it was, you went through the entire semester, was every week you'd go through 2 to 3 different amendments, starting with the first, going all the way through the 25th as we currently have it. So
if you're just joining us here at Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington, Normal, and beyond, beyond, because we are on Facebook, we're Twitter, Rumble, and YouTube. Please go out there, like, share the DPB show. You can also check Kevin out on Speechless. In studio with me is Chuck Erickson, not only a county board member, a friend, but an attorney at law, and somebody that I really lean into, especially when it comes to President Ronald Reagan and Abraham Lincoln, because he's studied so much more than I have and read so much more. Chuck does have his pocket constitution over there, and we're going to continue to dig in deep for the rest of the show, because that's what this is about. I know that many of you are planning to do great things over this holiday weekend, the weekend before Independence Day. We'd love to hear about that. We'd love to hear what you're doing. And when we come back, we're going to talk more about constitutional principles and what this land was truly meant to be, and why it is that I think we're struggling as we are. And it's because we're overstepping those boundaries that were put forth by our founders, that we are a co-equal branch of government, or we have co-equal branches of government in the executive, judicial, and legislative branches. But we're going to cover all of that with our friend Chuck Erickson, frequent contributor. And also I'm going to get Chuck's insight on Cubs baseball and where he thinks the rest of the season is going to go when we come back right here at Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal. Yes.
Okay. I mean, that speech that Reagan gave, that was his inaugural speech in 1981. Okay. And they said when he woke up that morning, the guy went in there and goes, "Hey,
You speak into the mic.
Okay.
Hear you and everything on.
All right.
Chuck is being secretive.
I'm being secretive. Okay.
So go ahead.
Anyway, that speech that you heard was from Reagan's inaugural speech in 1981. And that morning when Mike Devers went in there to wake him up, and he said, you got to get up. And his response was, "Do I have to?
Do I have to?"
I mean, this was the day he was to be inaugurated. So, I mean, it was just like,
well, he was older. You value your sleep.
He wanted to sleep, but,
I wish there were days that Joe Biden would stay in bed.
Well, there's days that, they always say that Reagan's principles are sometimes they're outdated. They're simplistic. I mean, good principles never become outdated. I mean, it's just like good morals never become outdated. Good values never become outdated.
This thing that we call our Constitution, our Declaration of Independence, never becomes outdated.
No, it's defining your rights. Yes.
It's like the Bible. Scripture never becomes outdated. It's amazing. I love it when people want to give their 2 cents on what the Bible says without ever spending time studying the Bible.
Yeah.
I find that fascinating.
Well, I mean, I think you have to remember when they were doing the Declaration, there was the philosophy of the divine right of kings. Okay. The king ruled you. Okay. And they were basically saying, no, our rights don't come from a king. They come from God.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And if the king or the government that is in place is not going to protect those rights, then we have a right to set up a government that will protect those rights.
Right.
Right. And
that's people can abolish the government. That's what it states. And once again, I'm not. Oh, we got light down.
I'm breaking things here.
All right, Chuck, we've gone dark here. Hold on. Nobody move. Let Kevin get to it. And Kevin, I think.
What did I do?
Be careful with cords and stuff.
Oh, you might hit with your foot.
I must have. Yeah.
Am I back on air?
No, you're not on
Okay.
Yeah, it's there's not much for this to clip onto, so the littlest thing onto the
Okay.
I'm just a silly attorney. I don't really understand all this
Kevin's
radio broadcasting technology.
Well, we've got a lot going on. We've got a lot going on, Chuck. Well, I think we all find ourselves at times wondering whether we're qualified or not to give our opinions, to expand upon our belief system. But you know what? That's what makes our country great. And I know I opened the show, and I'd love to go ahead and read this again, because I think it is paramount that we understand that's what we are experiencing right now, 230 plus years removed, that we hold these truths to be self-evident. that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their powers, just powers, from the consent of the governed, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. Thank you for joining us here at Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington, Normal, and beyond. I'm David Paul Blumenshine. This is the DPB show. In studio with me is Chuck Erickson across the way, as always, operating things and getting ready for his own show, because shortly, very shortly after the DPB show is Speechless with my friend Kevin Ferris across the way. Hey, Kevin, what do you got in store for your audience coming up in this from 3 to 5 today?
Yeah, so I got a lot going on. I do a lot of my show prep during your show, and so I'm working all that kind of stuff. But
because he's young like that, he can do that, Chuck.
Yeah.
He can multitask.
When you are young, you can multitask.
That's right. We can't do that.
Well, so I got a few things, a lot of stuff regarding the Supreme Court. I've done a lot of research in the last week about the Supreme Court decisions that
he also sat for the LSAT too.
Nice. Yeah, well, a few weeks
He's
ago.
an aspiring attorney.
Aspiring attorney.
And so I'm going to be taking that one again. I did okay on my first one, but I think I could do a little bit better. But for my show today, Supreme Court is like 99% of the show. I mean, we got the affirmative action ruling, we have the student loan forgiveness ruling, and the business service ruling with the LGBTQ community, and all of these, if anything, expand freedom. However, this morning, AOC went on State of the Union on CNN, and I've been reviewing her interview on that, in which she describes the Supreme Court as authoritarian, which I thought was really interesting. And so I'm going to respond to a little bit of her interview on State of the Union, and make sure that everybody hears just exactly what the left is trying to do. I talked about it privately on my YouTube channel a few days ago, that once these opinions came out, the discussion further would begin to come out from the lefties about expanding the court and trying to possibly put term limits on justices, everything like that. And that is exactly what AOC starts to hit on. And so I'm going to make sure we respond to that. Everybody knows exactly what these Democrats are trying to do in Congress and the kind of lies they're spreading. It's really interesting. And then in the second hour, I have David Shostokis, constitutional attorney, joining me, talking about how to really celebrate July 4th. It's not all barbecues and parties and everything and fireworks. We really got to remember.
Unless you go at the Old Crow or Smoke Daddies up in Chicago outside Wrigley Field. But I digress. Go ahead.
Yeah, but so he's going to talk all about like the Declaration of Independence, and then him and I are also going to hammer out some more of the Supreme Court stuff from the attorney side. I want to lay it out from some of the political stuff, but I want him to really get into, like Chuck with his expertise as well, talk about the legal side of what's really going on with our Supreme Court.
So David Shostokis. So I want to get your opinion on what Kevin had to say there, Chuck. But before I do that, Kevin, outside of getting a haircut, I'm looking at you in the screen here. Have you lost a little weight?
I have about 15 pounds recently.
My gosh, Kevin, you're looking good on camera.
Thank you.
Thank you. You know, obviously I can say that because I know that you shared with me at the beginning of the summer that one of your goals this summer was to spend a little more time walking to and from work. I know that you've done that because you've shared that with me. But you're looking good, Kevin. I'm proud of you.
Very much.
You've set forth a goal. You know who else says that they're trying to lose weight? The guy sitting to the left of me. And I want to hear about that when we come back, because I have the music in my ear, Kevin. But I really want to get your opinion on what Kevin had to state there about this whole judicial system, that these folks are adamant about rewriting how we handle ourselves according to this document.
Well, they want to use the courts to get past what they can't do through the legislature. That's what they're trying to do. They want the courts to do it for them.
Yeah. And that's obviously not consistent with what this document states.
No.
Hey, we're going to cover that and so much more when we come back here at Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington, Normal, and beyond. Join us on Facebook. Just on our Facebook Live. We'll be there during the break. See you after the break.
Are we still on, or
So you're still on Facebook now.
We're on Facebook.
Still on Facebook.
We're
All
still on
right.
Facebook. Hey, Kevin, could you tip that light? It looks like it's darkened me a little bit. I know that you didn't. That's all right. That's all right. I don't know if that. Yeah, I think it's got to come up towards the camera more. Can you get it? Oh, I know it's. I'm just trying to help our audience out there. Kevin's doing technical assistance here. I would have gotten up and have done it too, but there. Yes, thank you.
Yep.
I think that helped a lot to take the shadowing off. But hey, once again, congratulations. Like I said, I noticed when I'm looking, I was like, I've noticed in the shirt, the anti-socialism social club, and then I was like, well, he got his new haircut. And then I was like, wait a minute. Kevin really is fulfilling his goal. He's hitting upon it. So good for you.
It's walking. I don't eat as much. I'll still, and like, it's really, diet is always a hard thing for me because I like eating the kind of crap that's really bad for you. But
I
really
think
it's
everybody
about,
does.
it's just, I used to eat
Like old crow.
I used to eat like 3 meals a day plus snacking, and it would be 3 big meals. And now I usually have like I have a meal replacement shake I have for breakfast, and then I work all day, and then in the evenings I have a bigger dinner.
Yeah.
And then I used to drink a lot of calories. Now pretty much all my drinks, besides my occasional beer, is are 0 sugar. So that's really helping as well. So
that helps. And you just hit upon it. Obviously it's healthier eating, try to get in more vegetables, drinking a lot of water. I'm a big proponent of water. I try to get up every morning and drink 32 ounces of water. 32 ounces is a lot of water to kickstart the system, but that's what I do before I even have my coffee. So
I try to drink a lot of water and coffee in the morning, but I don't think I get to 32 ounces.
32 ounces. It's something I've been doing now for, gosh, I don't even know. It's at least 8 years. And I was watching one of those shows like The Biggest Losers, but it wasn't actually The Biggest Loser. And that's what this gentleman did is he said, he lost like 200, 300 pounds. He said he had 2 bottles of water, 16-ounce bottles next to his bed. And before he would get out of bed, he had to drink those 2 bottles. And he really states that was something that helped him in his journey of weight loss and wellness, because ultimately we can all be a little healthier. It's part of.
But there are nights when I like to sleep, and if I drink too much water before I go to bed, I'll be waking up in the middle of the night going to the bathroom all
And
the
if
time.
you get it in early, but if that's the thing, if you get it in during the day and you stop drinking water about 6 o'clock at night, and have your bottle next to your bed, to take a little sip. I'm not saying chug a bottle during night, but Chuck, unfortunately for us at our age, getting up in the middle of the night is going to be part of how our sleep
part
pattern.
of our life.
Hey, once again, appreciate everybody chiming in and commenting on the Facebook chat. Appreciate you going out and subscribing to our YouTube channel, the DPB Show. Like, love, share, comment, do whatever you need to do out there. But once again, it's something that we believe in here at Cities, that we've got to go to the next level, because you're not hearing this. We're one of only 3 conservative news sources in the state of Illinois. There is a reason the Chicago Trib writes about us. The Washington Post sought us out to do an article on us, is because they know we are a threat, because we're saying things that they don't report. In fact, in the most cases, they report something contrary to what we're bringing you, and they do it in such a manner that it just bores you. But anyhow,
What's everybody doing their part? I mean, you're doing your part on radio, other people doing their part in other aspects.
that's right, except the Washington Post.
Yes.
We don't believe they're doing their part. Okay, go ahead, Kevin. Hey, well, we're back here at Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington, Normal, and beyond. You can catch us on Facebook Live as we speak. Now, of course, we're not asking you to do that as you cruise the highways and byways of Illinois. I don't know where you're going this 4th of July weekend, or I should say the weekend before the 4th of July holiday. Please let us know by texting us at 309. And once again, don't text as you're driving, but 309-451-9299. It's also our studio line. You can call us there. Once again, the platform, social media, Facebook, Twitter, Rumble, and YouTube. Go out, like, subscribe. We'd love to hear from you. We couldn't do it without you. In studio with me, and has been for the last half hour, and is going to continue to stay with me, I believe, until the end of the show, is my friend, also county board member, attorney at law here in the McLean County area, Chuck Erickson. Also, he is the guy that I went to. That's where I got this fancy hat that I'm wearing. I just got that on Friday. Chuck and I went up to the Cubs game. We had delicious barbecue before the game
At Old Crow.
Which we're still we're in debate whether Old Crow over Smoke Daddies. I don't know. I'm gonna have to have Chuck take me up for a third game if I'm able to. Chuck, it's the tiebreaker, right? It's
the tiebreaker.
Smoke Daddies, then Old Crow, and who knows? I might have to go back to Old Crow, but it was delicious. It was a great game. Wrigley Field. I believe it's the eighth wonder of the world.
Well, they call it a federal landmark now.
No, they do. I heard that.
Not the friendly confines or
Which Chuck, let's not that we're going to deviate too far from what this holiday is about, Independence Day, but it is interesting. We have changed the language to adhere or to kind of pacify people. But I heard that, and you pointed that out. Were you aware of that, Kevin, that they call it a federal landmark now,
yes,
right? Rather than the friendly confines. I don't get it. Why is that?
Because a federal landmark must be more important than being friendly. At least to some people. What's wrong with being friendly?
Yeah, I mean, in a government-run state, when you're obviously,
why can't two people go to a game? Let's say they don't agree on everything in life, but they have one common mission. They want to see the Cubs win. I mean, what's wrong with that? And they don't. Politics has nothing to do with the game.
I didn't hear one political discussion as we sat in the stands.
No,
but there were people cheering.
Yes,
for their Cubbies, and we got to see what could be the one and only home run
from Nick Madrigal. I mean, you're not going to see a lot of those.
And Chuck got a picture of it. Guy's what? He's like 4'8".
I don't know. Pretty close.
Pounds, maybe 140 pounds. And I'm like, to get that over the fence is an accomplishment, and he did it.
He did it. Yes, it was a great home run.
And the Cubbies prevailed 10-1. Now, I will tell you that what is also taking place in Chicago this weekend is NASCAR. I didn't know if we'd have that up on the TV set here in studio. I don't know what time the race started. It probably has. I wonder
if they're getting rain up there.
Well, that's the other thing. Somebody
is it on
said
NBC?
Somebody said to guarantee that there's going to be rain in Chicago, you just have to schedule a NASCAR race. Oh, I think it says it's going to come up after the golf. So maybe it's a later race.
There it is. Yeah. NBC NASCAR Cup.
It's not coming on until 4:00. Oh, wow. So it's a later race today, which there were a lot of people on Twittersville commenting about the fact that they didn't believe that it was going to be as well attended because of the pricing of tickets and the fact that the race was in Chicago.
I could have gone, and I didn't get tickets with the group that went. I wish I had.
And I think it'll be well attended. It is the first race. First races are always, the inaugural race is always less attended than races that have been like Talladega. That's a race that's been going on for years, decades.
Yeah.
And, it's built up. Bristol, it's built up the reputation as a race. New Hampshire built up the reputation. Phoenix, Atlanta, Homestead. Those races have taken time to build themselves. And in Chicago, this is a street race. I think it's going to be fascinating. I want to see it. I hope that many of you, I think it's good for the economy. I think it's good to host an event with everything else that's going on in the Chicagoland area. There's battles that are going to continue to play out until we get this thing under control. Brandon Johnson as the new mayor, he's got a big mountain in front of him. Now, I don't believe that he's going to be able to overcome that. And that's because his ability to deal with the issues politically, he just doesn't have that, nor do I believe he has within him, as I do believe many people in our state. They don't abide by the Constitution. And that's what I want to talk about, Chuck, is before we went to break, we heard Kevin say, Ferris across the way was speechless, that he's going to cover some of these ongoing accounts of what just was decided last week by the Supreme Court. You're dealing with affirmative action. You're dealing with this whole thing that has JB in an uproar over the LGBTQ community. There was another one. What was the other one?
Well, that one I don't understand, because you don't have to go to this person to do your pictures or bake your cake or whatever the issue was. I mean, you can go to someone else. I mean, why do you have to force? I mean, what if they say, I would prefer not to do it? Oh no, you have to do it.
Yeah.
No, I would prefer not to do it.
Well, forcing anyone to do something against their right of religious freedom is in of itself unconstitutional, which doesn't surprise me. We're dealing with a governor, and we had Darren Bailey on in the first hour, and Darren still alluded to what he was battling, and what eventually was shown in his favor was the Governor Pritzker and his unconstitutional mandates and lockdowns of the state of Illinois.
Well, people want to be free. They don't want to be governed.
Well, and
and that's all he did was govern.
That's right. And,
one executive order after another.
And that's not what the Constitution, the state Constitution, nor the federal Constitution states. And so, Chuck, this argument that's coming from the left, the radical left, that they're wanting to pack the courts, they're wanting to continue to move the cheese, as the proverbial saying goes. They want to create government that's not of, by, and for the people. They want to create government for the sake of government. That's their solution, larger government.
Right. They want a court that will basically do what the legislature could never get passed. I mean, they want a super legislature, and they want it to be called the court. And that's not what the court's job is. The court's job is to interpret law, not make law. And it's always funny when a decision comes out that the liberals like. It's like, you can't question that. That's from a court. That's it. That's the only discussion we can have.
No one's above the law.
Yeah, you can't say anything else. But when it comes out against something they don't want, they start calling the court names.
Yeah.
I mean, they always start calling the court names. And it's just like, this is not an ordinary court, or these aren't normal people. I think that's what Biden said.
Yeah.
Because they didn't reach the decision that you would have liked. I mean, that's pretty self-righteous.
Freedom is a lifestyle, Chuck. And, I believe a lot of people would like to see our land restored because of the craziness that has transpired, especially in the last 10, 20 years, maybe 20 outside. But it's been setting itself up for this ultimate confrontation, which we hope doesn't, end up being anything more than the people rising up and demanding, through the power of the electoral system, that we start living up to our founding fathers and what they put forth.
Well, the people are the final check on the Constitution. I mean, it's up to the people to make sure that the government is living up to the Constitution.
Kevin, I'd like to finish that off from Reagan's. This was his inaugural speech, right? Is that correct, Chuck? And
yes.
You had said offline, it was on the Facebook side of things, that he was awoken that morning, and he basically said, "Do I have to go be president today?"
Well, I mean, he woke up, "Hey, you got to get up," and he goes, "Do I have to?
Do I have to? Do I have to get up?"
Let's sleep.
Well, we're gonna pick up where we left off with Reagan's inaugural speech.
As the will and moral courage of free men and women. It is a weapon our adversaries in today's world do not have. It is a weapon that we as Americans do have. Let that be understood by those who practice terrorism and prey upon their neighbors. As for the enemies of freedom, those who are potential adversaries, they will be reminded that peace is the highest aspiration of the American people. We will negotiate for it, sacrifice for it. We will not surrender for it now or ever. We are Americans.
So I guess, listening to Reagan's words, do those words still resonate in the land of the free, the home of the brave? I believe they do. I know that the price has been paid, but the current culture that we see manifested here, he brings up something. Reagan obviously was for defending our borders, protecting our land, both domestically and foreign.
Well, he believed in the power of a free people.
Yes.
I mean, he believed in the power of free people to create things that the world needed, to make society better, and to just make the world a better place to live in. Free people do that.
Well, and that's not something unique, I believe, of just people like Ronald Reagan. Even Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said it in his speech, "Let freedom ring," because he knew, I mean, well ahead of his time, that this court case of the Supreme Court over affirmative action, which I believe they're probably, and Kevin and I were talking into this before the show, that affirmative action probably after Jim Crow, there was some need for it to be in place for a limited time because of coming through the civil rights movement, right?
Well,
Or
that was the philosophy, yes.
and it wasn't supposed to stay on the books in perpetuity.
Well, I
Correct.
mean, as I recall, and my recollection might be incorrect here, but my recollection is Sandra Day O'Connor did support affirmative action, but she also said in some of her opinions, at some point it has to end. Okay, at some point you have to bring it to an end. And at this point, it's like these some of these people never see an end to it. And you just got to wonder, well, when do we ever get to that point? Um, at some point you've got to be fair to everybody. And affirmative action actually hurts Asian people. I mean, it actually hurts them in their pursuit of things because they get discriminated against. And so it's unbalanced.
It's taking someone else's rights away to give somebody else their right.
That's exactly
and
what
that
it is.
is
Yes.
not what the Constitution was intended to be. I do have a texter that is sharing this with me that basically, and she's pointing to the governor because it's because Governor Pritzker came out strongly on the affirmative action thing. And it's this doom and gloom that no one's ever going to have their rights given to them. They're not going to realize the freedoms, that this nation has promised them. Unless we continue affirmative action, unless we continue to force feed people to listen to government. I find it interesting when Ted Cruz said that he and Bernie Sanders agreed on most things, just didn't agree on what the solution was. He believed that the government was the solution, and I believe it was the people.
Yeah, free people are the solution. That's what Reagan believed.
That's right. Hey, we are up against the end of the show, and so we got a little segment after break. We're going to come back, and we're going to wrap things up here on the weekend before Independence Day, and I'm going to give Chuck an opportunity to talk a little bit more about what it means this holiday season to not only himself, but to you. I want to hear if you guys are doing something out there to celebrate Independence Day. I understand there's cookouts and you go to the pool and you do all those other things, but I want to hear how you're celebrating being a free people. We're going to hear about that right after we come back here from break at Cities 92.9, the news and talk of Bloomington Normal and beyond.
We're still on.
Yeah, we're back live on.
All right,
we're back live on Facebook. My texter on the text line says that she appreciates it when I call her a texter.
Well, that's her pronoun.
Her pronoun is texter.
Yes,
my pronouns are texter, and I don't know what else is paired with texter.
The texter.
The texter. So Chuck.
If I should ever happen to see this person, I'm going to call her the texter.
Well, I'm sure you're going to see plenty of her in the future. Chuck, I really, and I do appreciate you helping me with that on the selection of this hat. It was between this hat and one just like it, except the other one, the little cubby bear that was on the other hat had a little rounder features, and it wasn't kind of a off beige color.
Yeah.
It was white,
I just think that hat has more character.
and it didn't have these stripes.
Because
I like
yes,
the
the stripes in the cubby give you need a hat, a cap that gives you character. I mean, this is a plain cap I got on today, but I mean, but you want your hat to have character.
Well, and this was a good selection. As I was starting to say, and I don't think I finished this thought, Chuck. I was telling Chuck this, Kevin, that it takes me a long time to purchase a hat. I just can't do that in one game. I had to go to a second game. Actually, the hat that I thought I was going to buy was an all black with a blackout Cub logo. And I was like, no, I want to be more of a traditionalist because that's who I am. I'm a conservative. I'm a Christian conservative traditionalist. I like tradition. Will say this, Kevin, they didn't have the traditional uniforms on for that victory.
I started watching a little bit of that.
They had the
Yes.
old throwback uniforms on.
Yes,
I do like
Wrigleyville.
the throwback uniforms, but I do like the traditional pinstripes. That's what makes the Cubbies unique.
Yes.
Is the pinstripes. Are we coming back on?
No, you still got a minute.
Okay.
It's always fun to watch the Cubs, especially when they win, so you can sing at the end.
Oh, I got
Go
I
Cubs,
should
go.
send that to Kevin, and he can
Go
play
Cubs,
it. We can
go.
play it for us.
I
I'm a
mean,
White Sox fan, actually.
Well, so is
oh, geez.
well, we did have a chance to talk to Stephanie Trussell on our way up to the game, and she said she'd forgive me. She said, I'm a Sox fan.
You know what? I mean,
Why is that the
I don't
people
know.
up there in Chicago?
I never got that either because I like the Sox too.
I do like the Sox.
I mean, unless they're playing the Cubs.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm
But I
not
mean,
cheering
I'm
for
for the Sox. I'll cheer for the Sox. I was happy they won the World Series, 2005?
But you won't cheer for the Cardinals, will you?
Actually, if the Cubs aren't in it, I really am indifferent to whether the Cardinals win or not.
And you know what? I'm like that. I love baseball.
I just like the Midwest. I mean, I like to see Midwestern teams win.
Yeah, I want to say the Brew Crew. I'm all in for them. The Packers. I mean, even as a Bears fan, I like to see the Packers, Vikings, Lions. Back when the Rams were in St. Louis, I cheered for them a little bit.
So if the Cardinals win, it never bothers me. It's just as long as they're not beating the Cubs. I mean,
Okay, here we go to wrap up the show. It is the 4th of July, or I should say it is the 4th of July weekend, because there won't be, the weekend next weekend is really not the 4th of July weekend. This is the weekend before the 4th of July since it's on Tuesday. So I guess if it's the second day of the week or the third day of a week, I believe it's the third day of the week, because have I confused you yet here on the DPB show? Hey, I appreciate you joining us here Sundays from 1 to 3 live. We have the most live local talk in the Bloomington Normal area and beyond. We appreciate you as our audience. I really want to know, what are you doing this 4th of July holiday? Many of you took off Friday, so you've really made it a long weekend, an extended week, almost a week. So we want to hear from you. What are you doing to celebrate your freedom?
Read the Declaration of Independence.
That's what Chuck, you took the words right out of my mouth.
Read the Declaration.
In studio with me is my friend Chuck Erickson. He's going to wrap the show up with me. Chuck is county board member, attorney at law, and a loyal Cub faithful follower like myself. If you happen to see us both on our live Facebook Live, we are donning on our Cubs hats. We went to the game on Friday. But Chuck, that is something that we should do. Get a copy of your Constitution. Take a gander at just the Declaration of Independence. Many of these documents, these men who formed these things, they sacrificed it all, right? They knew what the penalty was for treason, right? Against the British government. They would put them on the gallows.
Yeah, this was a revolution against the King of England.
Well,
and with firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor.
That's right.
That's what the writers of the Declaration said. They knew that could. I mean, if they were caught, that could be the death penalty.
That was it. That was it. Now, and that's why I'm challenging you out there in Facebook land and beyond on the radio at Cities 92.9. Tell us what you're doing to celebrate freedom. At the very least, go online, look up the Declaration of Independence, and read through that.
One extra thing. I mean, I know you won't do it, most people won't do it, but if you get the opportunity, go on one of the streaming services and try to find the miniseries called John Adams. And it
Okay.
was on HBO. And watch the second episode. It's got the founders debating the Declaration of Independence. It's absolutely fascinating, the tension that was in that room when the way they portray it. I mean,
Because as you have said many times, Chuck, on air here, sometimes we have to have these fights. I mean, we
Right.
are in a position in this country where we're going to have a few fights,
yes.
and we're going to have a fight. We're going to have a fight on
And you have to take a
in
stand.
the halls of Congress. We're going to have a fight in Springfield. You know, granted, it's much better fight, I think.
Well, not only do you have to take a stand, I mean, you got to take a stand. Well, it's not happening to me. It's not my issue. Well, it's coming to you.
It's
I mean,
well,
it's going to come to you eventually. It has to.
that's one of my favorite sayings from Stephanie Trussell on the campaign trail. She said, many people would say, I don't do politics. She said, honey, you might not do politics, but politics is doing you every day. And it is. It dictates our lives. This book dictates our lives. You just heard about it, and many people are oblivious to it. Major decisions coming out of the Supreme Court. So stick around, because live after me is Speechless with Kevin Ferris, and he's going to hit upon a lot of those decisions that were handed down by our Supreme Court. Even though the governor of the state of Illinois is he's got a protest going on. He's protesting. I'm sure they're not going to arrest him. And
Well, it's almost amazing now. Whenever the Supreme Court comes out with a decision that the left doesn't like, I mean, they just unleash the vitriol.
yes,
I mean, it's amazing. And 20, 30 years ago, you never used to do that. Now they just start calling you names.
yeah.
They can't stop themselves.
And they send people to your house. I
Yeah.
mean, things that just didn't happen. And obviously, we need to continue to seek out the words, not only of the Bible, because I think it governs us in a lot of ways beyond the Constitution, because it talks about how we should handle ourselves. You know, there is a cause for freedom. You know, we are a free people. But as I repeated the verse from John 8:36 earlier, if the Son sets you free, you are free indeed. You know, it overarches. Even though our founding fathers were committed to their faith and practicing their religious way of life, or their religious freedoms and religious liberties, they knew that when it was all said and done, that they believed in something so much bigger than this country, you know. However, this country is a shining light on the hill. It is a beacon of hope to so many. And yes, we are going through some growing pains, especially when you have an open border, when you have a government out of control that is being dictated by some very unscrupulous people. Hey, I know we're up against the end of the show. Chuck, thanks for jumping in
Thank
here
you for having
today.
me.
Always appreciate you. Kevin's up next on Speechless. He's got a lot to say, so stay tuned for the next 2 hours here on the weekend before Independence Day. Hey, go out and enjoy a very happy and blessed, freedom-filled 4th of July. We will catch you next week here on the DPB show. But until then, we wish you peace and prosperity.